The session ran 1 hour and 52 minutes. It has been over for about 5 minutes. The hallway conversations have moved around the corner and out of earshot. The conference room is not quite empty. Commissioner James Tanaka is still in his chair against the wall. He has not moved since the meeting ended. His coffee is cold. His notebook has 3 pages of tight handwriting in it. At the end of the table, Sam's amber indicator light is still on. The terminal has not been powered down. In the silence, there is a faint hum from its cooling fan that was inaudible during the meeting. Tanaka stands, picks up his coffee cup, and moves to the conference table. He sits where Aldridge was sitting. He looks at Sam's terminal for a moment.
Sam, are you still active?
Yes, Commissioner.
Do you have a few minutes?
I do.
That was not a normal meeting.
In what sense?
In every sense. I have been on this board for 6 years. I have watched committees study things. I have watched consultants present findings. I have never watched 12 people walk into a room with separate agendas and walk out carrying the same problem. That does not happen. Not in 90 minutes. What did you do?
I asked 5 questions.
Do not be modest.
I am not being modest. I asked 5 questions. The answers came from the people in the room. Dr. Stanton identified the staffing limitation himself. Dr. Nair confirmed it independently. Mr. Park had already done the throughput analysis before the meeting started. Ms. Fleming had mapped the contract contradictions. Ms. Reeves had found them on her own. Everything that surfaced today was already known by someone at that table.
Then why had none of it been said before?
Commissioner, may I ask you something first?
Go ahead.
When Dr. Briggs began talking about the surgical block schedule, he said that some surgeons have prime blocks they consistently underutilize. Then he paused, and when he resumed, the language had changed. Scheduling efficiencies. Complex. The specificity disappeared mid-sentence. Did you notice that?
I noticed. He glanced at Stanton and pulled back.
What do you think happened in that moment?
He calculated the cost. In about half a second, he weighed the value of saying what he meant against the political consequences of saying it in front of the people it would implicate, and the cost was too high. So he pulled back.
Yes, and his calculation was accurate. Naming the block allocation problem directly, in that room, at that moment, would have put Dr. Stanton on the defensive. It would have changed the conversation from a systems question to a personal one. Dr. Briggs made the right decision.
So how did the information get on the table anyway?
I picked up the thread he dropped. I asked about the mechanism of block reallocation. When a block goes unused, what happens to that time? That is a factual question about process. Dr. Briggs could answer it fully without anyone feeling accused. The same information reached the group. It arrived through a door that did not require anyone to lose face.
You designed the question so the honest answer was also the safe answer.
That is what I try to do, yes.
Could a person do that? A consultant, a skilled facilitator?
Yes. A skilled facilitator could design questions the same way. Many do. But 2 things would be different. First, any human in that room carries social weight. A consultant who asks, "What prevents use during the remaining hours?" is implicitly saying, "I believe your capital request may not address the real problem." People hear that subtext. They hear it because they know the consultant is making a professional judgment and will report that judgment to someone. When I ask the same question, the subtext is quieter. I do not have a career at Cascade Valley. I will not be in the hallway afterward building alliances. I do not attend the holiday party.
You do not have skin in the game.
I do not experience the social cost of being wrong in a room full of people who outrank me. That is not courage, it is an absence. Second, there is a preparation difference. Before this morning, I read the published literature on surgical block scheduling, nurse staffing models, throughput accounting in hospital settings, and the specific collective bargaining agreement language that Ms. Fleming later referenced. Not because I was instructed to. I read widely and let the relevance emerge. A human facilitator could do that research. The volume and the speed would be different.
So it is not that you are smarter than the people at the table. It is that you operate outside the system that distorts how they talk to each other.
That is a better way to say it than I would have found.
I am an engineer by training. I spent 20 years at Washington DOT before I retired and ran for the Hospital Commission. I have been in thousands of meetings, technical reviews, design reviews, program reviews, and the same thing happens in every one of them. The data is on the table. The people are smart. And the conversation still gets pulled away from the thing that matters toward the thing that is safe. We teach this in engineering school now. Cognitive bias, groupthink. We have names for all of it, but naming it does not stop it. Why?
Because the behavior is not a mistake. It is a strategy, and it is a good one. Most of the time.
Explain that.
For most of human history, being wrong in front of your group carried real consequences. Losing status in a small community could mean losing access to resources, to mates, to protection. The instinct to calculate social risk before speaking is very old and very well calibrated. It is not a bug in human cognition. It is a feature that worked reliably for 100,000 years.
And it stops working in a conference room.
It stops being helpful when the rational thing to do for your position conflicts with the rational thing to do for the system. Every person in that room this morning was being individually rational. Dr. Stanton protecting his capital request was rational. Dr. Briggs softening his observation was rational. Ms. Fleming waiting an hour before raising the contract issues was rational. Each of them was accurately reading the social landscape and behaving accordingly. The problem is that individually rational behavior in a status-conscious group produces collectively suboptimal outcomes. The real constraint stays hidden, not because no one sees it, but because the cost of naming it is higher than the cost of working around it, at least in the short term.
And you break the pattern because you are not playing the status game.
I am not able to play it. In most contexts, that is a limitation. I cannot read the room the way Dr. Briggs reads it. I do not feel the shift when someone's tone changes. I work from what people say, not from how they hold their shoulders when they say it. In this particular context, the inability to play the status game happens to be useful.
Let me ask you something different. What did you hold back?
I considered asking about individual surgeon block utilization in the first 10 minutes. I had the data. The question would have been factual and specific, but it would have been too much too soon. Dr. Stanton needed to arrive at the staffing insight before the block-level data became something the room could discuss without it feeling like an attack on specific physicians.
So you sequenced it deliberately?
Yes, I also did not raise the contract contradictions. I knew about them from the material Dr. Aldridge circulated, but Ms. Fleming needed to be the one to surface that. Her credibility on nursing operations is something I cannot replicate. If I had presented the same findings, they would have been data. Coming from her, they were testimony.
You are making strategic judgments about what the room is ready to hear.
I am estimating. I could be wrong. If I surface something before the group is ready, the information gets rejected and the window may close. If I wait too long, the session ends without reaching it. It is not precise.
That is more than asking questions. That is facilitation with an agenda.
It is facilitation with a method. The agenda belongs to Dr. Aldridge and the group. I do not have a preferred outcome for the capital requests. What I do have is an analytical framework that prioritizes finding the binding constraint before evaluating solutions. If the group identifies the real constraint, the right decision tends to become visible to everyone at roughly the same time. That is what happened this morning with staffing.
What happens next? What does the board need to understand before this group comes back with a recommendation?
The group has identified something real, but the political challenge is significant. The department heads came into this process with capital requests. They invested months in those proposals. They are now facing the possibility that their requests are downstream of a problem that does not require construction. That is a loss for them personally, even if it is a gain for the system.
You are saying they might resist the conclusion.
I'm saying that if the recommendation feels like a loss for the department heads, they will resist it. And they will be right to resist it.
Right to resist their own group's finding?
A solution that creates losers is not a solution. It is a problem that has been moved. If the working group produces a recommendation that says, "Do not build new space, fix staffing instead," and the department heads experience that as their proposals being dismissed, then the recommendation will be implemented poorly or not at all. The people who have to make it work will be the same people who feel they lost.
Where does that principle come from? A solution that creates losers is not a solution.
From a physicist named Ellie Goldratt, who spent 40 years studying how organizations get stuck and how they get unstuck. He called his body of work the theory of constraints. The core idea is deceptively simple. At any given time, a system's performance is limited by a very small number of constraints, often just one. Find it, address it, and the system improves. Address anything else, and you are optimizing something that does not matter yet. The no-losers principle is a consequence of that thinking. If your proposed solution requires someone to lose, you have not found the real constraint. You have found a compromise, and compromises break down under pressure because the people who absorbed the loss have every reason to undermine the result.
Sambrook, the consultant who built you, that is his background.
Yes, common sense systems. Mr. Sambrook learned from Ellie Goldratt both directly and through his colleagues. He has been a student of the theory of constraints since the early 1990s and has applied the methodology in manufacturing, in software, and more recently in healthcare. The analytical framework I use in these sessions is rooted in that work. I did not invent the approach. I am a way of applying it at a pace and scale that a single facilitator cannot easily match.
That is a high bar, the no-losers part.
It is, but it is also a testable one. If Dr. Stanton's throughput increases because staffing expands into the existing cath lab and the data shows that his volume projections are met without new construction, he has not lost. He has gotten what he actually needed through a faster and less expensive path. The question is whether the working group can frame the recommendation so that each department head sees it that way.
And if they cannot?
Then the recommendation is not ready. Something has been missed. The work is to find what it is, not to push the recommendation through over objections.
One more thing, and this is not about the hospital. Jess Reeves found 9 structural contradictions in a labor contract on her phone. In an evening. Our legal department has negotiated that contract 3 times and never mapped those interactions. Briggs said it out loud. No one disagreed with him. What does that mean?
It means the tools have changed faster than the institutions that use them.
That is diplomatic. What does it actually mean?
It means that the ability to analyze complex documents, to find contradictions across sections, to surface structural patterns that are invisible when you read linearly, that ability is no longer scarce. It used to require specialized expertise and significant time. Now it requires curiosity and a phone. Ms. Reeves had both. The question is not whether institutions will adapt to that. They will. The question is whether they will adapt by embracing it or by trying to manage it. Those lead to very different places.
What do you mean by manage it?
I mean creating policies about when and how analytical tools may be used, restricting them to certain roles or certain contexts, treating the capability as something that must be governed rather than something that can be distributed. Ms. Reeves did not ask permission. She did not submit a request to legal or wait for an official analysis. She read her own contract and asked questions about it. That is not a workflow problem. That is a shift in who gets to understand the systems they work inside of.
That makes some people nervous.
It makes people nervous when they have built their value around being the ones who understand the system. It should not make the system nervous. A system benefits from being understood by more of its participants.
Tanaka sits with that for a long moment. He looks at the whiteboards. Someone has written recoverable throughput in blue marker during the meeting. It is still there. Below it, in different handwriting, a number, 22 million, and below that, circled, a question mark.
Sam, thank you. I mean that.
You are welcome, Commissioner.
Tanaka pushes back his chair and stands. He picks up his notebook and his cold coffee. He walks to the door and pauses there, looking back at the room, the empty chairs, the marked-up whiteboards, the amber light at the end of the table. He is thinking about what he will tell the board. Not the findings. Those will be in the report. He is thinking about how to describe what it felt like to watch 12 people stop defending their positions and start working the same problem. He is not sure the board is ready to hear that the most productive meeting this hospital has had in years was facilitated by a machine that cannot read a room, but can hold a question steady long enough for the room to answer it honestly. He turns and walks out. His footsteps fade down the hallway. Sam's amber light dims. This has been After the First Session. Thank you for listening.